as well. Remember that lubricant contributes to cooling. So if the lubricant does not have that required thermal stability, it cannot give you what you are looking for, part of your plant reliability. So when we do plant study, we look at what the OEM and the equipment builder have approved for your use, and we look at the environment that the equipment is going to work, and we advise you on what to do. Then we make recommendations and based on the lubricants that are available locally where you are working. We see a lot of guys in the supply chain going through a lot of stress, sourcing for lubricant outside the country, where what they have locally can still give them what they want. So you put the whole system into a very, I don't know, will I think so, a very serious four grades of 15W40. The question I asked for my guy says the one will do the training. Which grade of the 15W40 did the equipment builder recommend for your use? But if I may ask in this house now, you have an asset that is asked your manufacturer say run on 15W40. And he has told you 15W40, which is the SAE grade of the oil. What is the quality level, like Mr. Steve was submitting before he handed over the mic to me? What quality level of the 15W40 are you supposed to use? Is it going to be a CM4 oil? Is it going to be a CH4 oil? Is it going to be a CH4 oil? Is it going to be a CI4 oil? Which grade of 15W40 are you going to use? The question now lies, when you see engineers, they say, okay, 15W40, give me 15W40. Now, if the equipment decide to run on a CH4 oil, for instance, and you have available 15W40, or the CM4 oil, what have you done so far? We have succeeded in killing that equipment from inception, because the viscosity characteristic of the CF4 oil and the CI4 oil can never be the same thing. One has better flowability than the other. Mr. Steve made mention of engine that sizing. This is what is happening in the industry today. So when we do plant study, we tend to find out the asset you have. What did the equipment builder ask you to use? When we begin to look at the API classifications of lubricants, jeopardizing the life of that asset. We visited a transport section where they have a number of trucks. Why? The equipment builder is not there. They were buying the CF4 oil and never the same thing. And turbo checkers are high-speed moving guys with high temperature associated with it because of the temperature of the exhaust. So this oil keep breaking down, and once any form of seizure, the engine collapses and stop them on the highway. So the question is, why are they having this problem? There's a knowledge gap. So when we do plant study, we tend to close that knowledge gap that is existing in the plant. So it's not a program that is sweet because it takes a lot of energy and diligence to do. So when we do plant study from our own end, because in the industry today, I think we're the only guys who are doing it with some level of diligence, we tend to work with you through your plant to make sure that this plant is available 99%. So, and at the end of the day, the glory still go back to you, who is the plant person, not me. Because in the eyes of your management, I'm a vendor. So when we do audit, we don't use the word audit, we use study so that we're not going to a fight with the guys in the plant. We do this to ensure that we get our plant available and ready for running. Next slide, please. And the second thing here is lubricant ordering. We have seen in the industry where people operate this fire brigade approach. You call the vendor. We need the oil now. Plant is shutting down. We plan with you. When we do plant engagement from plant audit, we start from plant audit and we zero into plant and lubricant ordering. We want to understand your consumption pattern. If your plant is a big plant, we are using 100 drums per annum, for instance. So by default, we are saying that every month you need a 10 drum.
minimum. So we need to understand how your plant consumes lubricant. So when you understand your consumption behavior, we can now plan with you for the time you're going to need the oil. So when we work with you, we're not just coming there to drop our oil and walk away. We work with you, work with procurement, we work with the maintenance guy to understand the processes involved. We work more with the maintenance guy to understand when is their maintenance time. So when we do this, we tend to make sure that we rub hands with you, we rub minds with you, we relate with you very well to make sure that this plant is available and at your service. So in doing so, we try to understand your product ordering, which quality profile will be of your interest, not what is available. We try to understand which quality level of this product suits your operation. I keep saying it when I go to any plant. I'll tell the maintenance guys that it's not a crime to dress on suit like Doc, come today and come to the office. It's not a crime. If you're the chief engineer, nothing stops you from coming in your jacket and your tie. That means you have succeeded in developing your plant to some extent that you can come comfortable and you are sure that you are good. But if you have not developed your plant, you can't come in just appearance. You must come with your heart out all the time, your safety shoe, and you're ready to run. That's reactive. So you must develop yourself to a point where every aspect of the plant is available and reliable, that you don't need to be around for the plant to run. So when we do this, we tend to understand the lubricant and greases you are buying, who is your vendor? How do you handle this? Okay, next slide, please. Then another critical area has to do with lubricant storage and handling in plants. How do you store your finished lubricant in the plant? How do you dispense the finished lubricant in the plant? Just a scenario this afternoon. I was when you went in to get your lunch or the tea break or whatever you had this afternoon, and somebody now serving you with a dirty plate. How will you react to that? We have seen in plants where people top-up cans are treated with some level of laxity, with no care. In fact, we've gotten to a cement plant where we see people measure oil with bucket. Of course, you know how the cement plant is very clean. They leave the buckets all over the places. And in trying to talk about it, it became a very big problem because they saw you as somebody who's coming to report them, but not knowing you are there to improve their process. So you must understand how lubricants are handled and dispensed in the plant. So you must treat lubricants the way you treat the food you eat to be able to make your equipment available for your use. Next slide, please. When storing, there is consideration for first in, first out. If you don't have that facility for first in, first out, you need to work more with your vendor to hold minimum stock so that you don't keep more inventory. You bring in today, remove the last one you brought. The first one you brought is still inside. You keep shipping in and shipping out from one source. So you must design your plan so that the first one that comes goes first before the last one that comes. Now, in storage areas should be clean, neat, and well maintained. Lubricants are stored in a conditioned environment. They are not supposed to be stored under the sun. There are some additives that are reactive to temperature. So you can keep an inventory of a product under the sun. The additives are used up while in storage. So when you introduce an already exhausted additive into a machine, are you going to get any result that is good? So we must begin to look at how we store lubricant in the plant. Then we must understand again, how do we move our drums from the lubricant storage location to the point where we're transferring them into the asset? Very, very critical as well. Is fire suppression system in place in the lubricant storage area? What is the safety measure? Lubricants are combustible items. Do you have firefighting measures where you're storing lubricant? For those of us who are storing large lubricant. Next slide, please. Dispensing, I've said a little about this. We need to understand how we dispense lubricants into the machine. If we cannot afford to eat with dirty hands or with dirty plates, why must we dispense lubricant through dirty means into our assets? You'll see some guys, whether on the vessel, whether in the plant, they pick up any container, they go there, collect oil, and they're pouring. The idea is to make this machine as comfortable as possible. And these gaps are addressed via the platforms of training and information transmission. So your management should be able to see the need for training. There should be a need for training. If you don't train them, don't blame them. The guy does it the way he sees the roadside man does it. Every potential engineer was once an attendant or a customer to a generator repairer, given the power situation in this country. They must have seen the mechanics changing the oil or changing the oil either in the generator or in the car. So the man by the roadside will just pick anything. Some of them will fold paper and be pouring oil into a graduate's car, and you'll be looking at them. He had just picked on the paper he saw, fold it into a funnel, and is pouring oil with the sand and the dirt into your car as a graduate of engineering, and you're looking at him. No, that's what's happening there. So the point is, we must understand what we are doing. A grain of sand can destroy the piston and the liner. One grain of sand, piston and liner is gone. Destroy the aeration on the surface of the liner is gone. You begin to have blowbys here and there. You don't know why the blowbys are happening. You begin to drive your car, you see the thing is smoking. It will smoke this morning. As you drive, stop, because the oil will seal it up. After some time, the smoke comes again. This motor, it goes to smoke today, tomorrow it goes stop. These are the things causing it. It's not witchcraft. So it's important we begin to understand how we take care of our assets vis-a-vis the way we take care of our body. So next slide, please. Time is critical here, please. Now, application. When we have gotten lubricants into the plant, how do we transfer them to the in-service equipment? What medium, what channel? The man handling this job, what's the level of training he or she has got? If the man or woman doing this have not got that required training or skill, you don't blame them. They're going to do what they know best. So there's a need for training. Is the lubricator conscious of those things that can make the lubricant to fail? What are those things that can make a new lubricant to fail while in service? So the person transferring this lubricant from the drum or the grease from the container to the asset should understand what can make this to fail. If you don't have that understanding, you will not be able to know when you are doing the right thing or you are doing the wrong thing. You will be able to understand what are the necessary preventive and predictive maintenance tasks in place to ensure this equipment are properly lubricated and what? And managed. So the man doing this will be able to know why he or she is doing this. And in the case of emergency, what do? I've had instances where somebody decided to top up a gearbox with an ATF oil. An industrial gearbox with an ATF oil. Their viscosity gradings are parallel to each other, not supposed to meet anywhere. But this guy have a knowledge gap and is going to top up an industrial gearbox with an ATF oil. What will happen after 10 minutes of that action? The gearbox will go. So the implication of whatever we are doing must be known to the man who is doing it. So if you don't know it, you don't blame them. And 80% why assets fail, of course, we say that the reliability of the asset is designed from the design stage, but the reliability is sustained through lubrication for the rotating ones. If you design the reliability from the design stage, and you build the reliability from the design stage, and you bring the asset to field, and you don't practice lubrication reliability to sustain that reliability that has already been designed into that asset, it will fail in the next 1 hour. So we need to understand this. Next slide, please. Next slide. We need to, here we talk about condition monitoring now. How do we monitor this asset? We have Doc made mention of different monitoring conditions we have. The speakers from the morning have talked about different monitoring conditions we have. We talk about oil analysis. The oil analysis you see speaks volume. More information is available in oil analysis. Every parameter that is tested speaks or tells us what is happening ultimately with any asset that is under review. So if we do oil analysis, some of us don't take it serious. Some of us do it for academic exercise. So by the time they are doing audit, and what's the last oil analysis result, you go and bring it. What is that result communicating? You don't have any idea. So we must have an understanding of what condition monitoring that is in place. If we are doing oil analysis, what result, what action, if I may ask, from your respective plants, how many of us have taken action based on our oil analysis results of in-service lubricant? You take oil sample for an equipment that is running, you analyzed it, and the result come back, and you took action based on what the result tells you. Good to know that. So we begin to ask, if you begin to ask this question now, Out of the two that raised their hand now, what happened to the rest? Are we not doing oil analysis in the plant? We do. Then what action have you taken based on the oil analysis you did? Is in the process. Are there focus are dedicated and commitments on the job for any form of guarantee? What are those things that can give us what we want? What are you doing about it? Time is fast spent. I'm getting some signal behind. Next slide, please. Okay, please go back. Okay. Here comes what I was saying from the beginning. The need for training. The personnel need to be trained. They need to know. Like, if it's not adding money, if not something that, like, we tell you there's no budget for training, that's the annoying thing you hear from a plant that is running 24 hours. I visited some plants, I don't want to mention it because some people are here. You hear their top management telling you there's no budget for training. Oh, guys, excuse me. You don't have budget for training? If you don't have budget for training, then you have budget for buying spare parts. Yeah, some of them we face suddenly, like this bros was trying to explain. You just stop the machine and the thing refused to start. Yes, because functional failure have been in existence, but because there's no knowledge to understand that the functional failure initiated already, you will not be able to get those functional failures using your condition monitoring tools. And if you don't get them, when you stop, you can't start. So there's the need for training. The personnel, if you are the plant engineer, the port engineer, whatever category you have, the people working under you should be able to transfer some level of knowledge to them so that it will reduce your own level of supervision. The idea is not to train them so that they can get a job somewhere else. The idea is to reduce your own burden of supervision. If you will see training from that perspective, that training is meant to reduce our burden of supervision, we make it an everyday thing. So as a plant engineer, as a plant manager, as a plant, whatever capacity you're having, anybody working under who is involved in lubrication need to be trained so that they know what to do. It reduces your own level of communication and makes them to report back to you based on what is happening on a daily basis. Next slide as we conclude. Now, the concept of lubrication management requires the use of good quality lubricants to help maintain asset performance and what? Reliability. Every lubricant is not the same. Hello? Every lubricant is not the same. As we move from manufacturer A to B to C, that is how their quality varies. But all of them have the same viscosity grade. Everybody produces the same viscosity, SAE 15W40, SAE 40, whatever. We all produce it, but we don't have the same quality level. And I'm happy to say that at Immobile, we have what we call the quality reserve of our brand. Our brands are designed, it's not just designed, they are engineered to exceed. I've had instances where we argue with equipment manufacturers. You say this equipment is going to do 250 hours. We're telling you can do 1,000 hours. I will prove it. Well, I've had incidences. I told them yesterday when we had the training, we have proven some manufacturers wrong, that your submission on this matter is not correct. There's a case we are investigating in a particular state in this country in a cement plant. We had we have 5 engines, a particular model. Okay, all the engines are connected to one heat exchanger. All of them. Then you now put our brand in one engine. You had an elevated temperature of the bearing. Now, the question is, you had a bearing temperature. What caused it? All the engines have the same temperature. The heat exchanger have the same temperature. The oil cooler have the same temperature. The oil itself had the same temperature. And this one is expressing high bearing temperature. Is that an oil problem? The man said the oil we put was wrong. All of them have the same information. All of them have the same data. Then why are you saying that the oil in this one is the one that's the problem? The same oil temperature here is the same oil temperature here, is the same oil temperature here. The same water temperature is in all of them. So what is happening to engine number 1? Reliability. So after changing the remaining ones, only engine number 1 is isolated to have this problem. Is that an oil problem? But when you change the engine number 1 the first time, you blame the oil. Why make such hasty decisions? Okay? One key success factor for life extension of machine component service lies in the reliability of the lubricant management system. This class is not enough to talk about this. To improve oil efficiency in different machines, to process the process of developing the lubricant management in machine and maintenance and reliability must put into consideration those identified elements. What are those elements we have identified? The need for training, the need to do the right thing, the right lubricant, the right amount, the right place at the right time. Why are we doing the 4 R's of lubrication? And what are the implications of the 4 R's of lubrication in our plant reliability? We need to know these ones. Now, good machine lubrication management helps to increase interval between machine maintenance and guarantee maximum operation and what? Production. Thank you very much. Any question? I need to hand over the mic at this point.
Questions? 1, 2. Okay. Wait, oh no, let me go start from there. 1, 2. When I come here, I'll take numbers.
Thank Mr. Steve and Felix. I really appreciate your lecture. It's interesting. I want to make a comment because you're always talking about mobile. Well, we know that mobile oil is good, and that's equally what we are using. But I want you to look at this perspective. Most of the time you come to the site, I remember I do discuss with you about storage. Mobil may produce a good oil, but what about those that take the oil, the vendors that take the oil from Mobil to their own facility? Did you also look at the way this oil is being stored? Because that is the most important thing. I remember like the incident we have recently, which I also believe you are aware. We tested the oil. I do remember you always condemned my machine, that my machine is not working well, you and Steve. But the issue is that I trusted my machine. I'm not an oil producer, but I've been given that machine in a narrow form to control my system. So I work with my machine and I believe in my machine. So what my machine gives me is what I also depend on because it has never failed me. Two oils were brought together and I tested this one. The viscosity was okay. The moisture content was okay. I tested the other one and I have a very big variation. So, and I make my comments. My comments still remain. You don't send the oil to the company. The vendors take the oil from you to their own facility. Did you check where they store the oil to have a confidence and integrity for the oil that is being delivered to your customer? Thank you.
All right. First, the scenario around your question, I will downplay it for the purpose of this class. I will take your last comment. Now, before you become a distributor for a brand, you must have a functional warehouse that is fully ventilated. Okay? You don't just pick the drums of oil and dump them outside. No. So you must have a functional warehouse that is fully ventilated. You can't get into a warehouse where you store a lubricant and you are sweating. None of our distributors have such facility, I must tell you. You can't get to where they are keeping their lubricant and you are sweating. It's not possible. So that is that. So going to the condition that made the experience you had, I don't want us to dissect it here because if we start dissecting it here, we'll be exposing a lot of things that is not meant for this class. Okay? The analysis you did, you got a wrong answer. We took the same sample to a third-party lab who said that nothing is wrong with the sample. Okay? So if we want to dissect what transpired, we might get out of the context of this class. Okay? But this oil you rejected was actually very good. So we begin to look at what happened between your analysis and the machine. Any other question? Okay, see.
To support what Felix has said, we have processes guiding lubricant storage. If you are privileged to come to Apapa where we make lubricants and see our oil house, we call it oil house. but there's a difference between warehouse
And oil house.
and oil house. Oil house gives you room for first in, first out. But in warehouses, you have seen people store products. That room is not there. Products get overstored. Product gets stayed for years. The one that came last will go first. While the one that comes first will remain there perpetually. And when we encounter such, our recommendation would always be, if we looked at the presentation critically, to reconfirm the quality of the products in the drum before you use them. So to explain further about our processes in terms of making sure the products you get from Apapa in our distributors warehouse maintains the same product integrity before it goes inside the machine. We have 2 distributors covering this part of the country here with us. So I'm going to invite the MDs of those companies, our partner Cisco, the managing director of Cisco Oil, Chief Hubert Ngoka.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Steve, for this opportunity. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be in this program and I've really learned a lot. So Felix have answered the primary question. I said it clearly that they have a procedure to appoint distributors. And I'm proud to associate with Mobil. We have been a distributor with them for over 15 years. So when it tells you they have a procedure, yes, they do have a procedure. And our warehouse is here in Port Harcourt. It's not far from where you're sitting. So you can come and take a look. That's the first. Unfortunately, I wish we could beam the warehouse here so you see the stacking. So I'm personally inviting you to come and see so you understand what you have said. So this is an opportunity to say, for us to remain distributors, we know what we are doing, we have the right facilities, and we are storing appropriately. So the team is here. Edejiro is here. Please stand up for recognition. Daniel. Where is Daniel? Daniel is here to stand up for recognition. Prince Will. Prince Will Eloni is here. And Emmanuel Umike, please stand up for recognition. So they will personally engage you, give you the addresses, give you time to come and visit. So I think that's simply what I can say. We are proud to be called Mobil Distributors, and we maintain that brand integrity as long as we remain distributors. And we don't intend to change for being distributors. So we remain Mobil Distributors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, sometimes when you sit beside them, the instructions will come. The MD has given me instruction that we should do 5 minutes video of each distributor's warehouse and share it in
training, we make sure that the people we sell product to store the products appropriately. That is why Felix was talking about training. It's very critical in our business. We don't play around with it. In terms of our warehouse meets all the required standards. If you're buying product, if you're buying mobile products, please strive and buy from the distributors. If you buy from the distributors, be rest assured that the product you are getting from the distributors is exactly the same product that was manufactured in mobile plant. And the benefits of that is that whenever you have a problem from any product I supply you, I don't have headache. I'll just hand over the problem to them. And they will use all the mights of Mobil and ExxonMobil. I said Mobil and ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is worldwide. Mobil is Nigeria. Any technical problem is escalated all over the world. So whatever product we supply you, the rest assured is the same product everywhere. So don't be afraid of any product to buy from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question here before I go the other way.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is this: in this economic of ours, where everybody is looking inward in terms of waste control, recycling, and co, what is the position of Mobil when it comes to a synthetic oil that is not well spent, but we determine that there is a little contamination and we're doing filtration on it?
It depends on the grade of oil you are going to do filtration on. So if you are using a synthetic oil for internal combustion engines, if you talk about filtration, it doesn't apply here. But if you're talking about hydraulic systems and turbines, yes, we are good to go. Heavy industrial gear oils, we are good to go. But if it's for internal combustion engines, you can't achieve anything. Okay? Now, before you use synthetic oil, there are measures you need to put in place. You need to improve your lubrication reliability first. Because if you don't do that, you are going to be spending more money buying that expensive lubricant and wasting them. So what made that oil to be contaminated in the first place? Have we been able to address it? If you don't address it, you replace the oil, it will get contaminated again. So this is where training and knowledge improvement lies. So if the people handling this are not properly informed or educated on what they need to do or what they need to know regarding handling the process, the problem will remain there.
Okay, thank you. Doctor has a question for you.
Wow. Okay.
Very easy one.
Okay. Just like the slide is very easy. Okay.
During the presentation,
yes, sir,
you said something like the viscosity of some other oil and that of your company may be the same, but the one from your company is better. So the question has to do that, how do you determine the quality of any lubricant? What are the parameters?
Okay, I said the viscosity can be the same thing, but their quality is never the same thing. I borrowed a leaf from the 15W40, for instance, where I say we have a CF4 15W40, we have a CH4 15W40, we have a CI4 15W40. I remember that statement very well. Now, when we have 15W40s of these grades, they are all ISO VG and they are all SAE 15W40. That talks about their viscosity. That does not talk about their quality level. When we begin to look at the API classifications of the oil, this is what is telling us their quality reserve, the level of performance they have. Now, yesterday, when I was having a training with some of our guys here, I did make mention of what we refer to as the viscosity index. You can have a 15W40 with a viscosity index of 90. You can have a 15W40 with a viscosity index of 120 or 110 or 115. These two oils have the same ISO VG, the same SAE number, which is 15W40. But their thermal stability can never be the same thing. One can oxidize faster than the other. One can retain heat better than the other. One can take heat away from the components more than the other because of their viscosity index property. So for us in mobile, we operate at the highest echelon. We don't operate midway or halfway or down the scale, no. So if we are telling you that this is a 15W40 that's going to do 500 running hours for you for internal combustion engines, for instance, that 500 hours we are telling you, if you subject that same oil to 800 running hours, you don't have a problem. But we're going to support that anyway with some form of condition monitoring program. Key among them is the oil analysis. So when we do oil analysis, we tend to understand what is the useful life of this in-service oil. What is remaining? We have had instances where we put a super performing lubricant into an engine. In less than 100 hours, the oil is gone. There's nothing you can do. You need to change the oil. Yesterday, I was talking about oxidation being an irreversible chemical reaction. Now, when we have a situation where there's oxidation is propagating an oil or an internal combustion engine or any lubricant for that, and you have a maintenance target of 300 hours, and you did oil analysis at 100 hours, you saw that oxidation has been initiated. As a maintenance person, what will you do? Will you hit your maintenance target of 300 hours or will you replace the oil? Huh? Let's be realistic. Which one will you do? Leave academic knowledge. Doctor is here, leave that. Practical, what will you do? You see the problem? You centrifuge. Then when you centrifuge, are you going to remove oxidation by centrifuge? Now, the point here is still, what do you do? When you have oxidation, even if the oil has just worked for 50 hours, an oxidation is initiated. A number of factors led to that. Key among them has to do with cooling. You need to remove that oil. How much is the oil versus the asset? Doc was talking about allowing the equipment to fail and you start reacting. Why not change the oil and keep running that asset? It's better you plan that maintenance than the machine controlling you. At the time that machine is controlling you, you are, sorry, it's a very big problem. So what do? You change the oil and keep running.
Felix,
okay.
Many of us, our machine, they control us. In reality, many of us are controlled by machines. And sometimes it's not because we don't know better, but I think we need to do better. I have just 2 questions I'll take and then I'll knock it off. Okay. Please.
Engineer Hart is my name. And though the doctor has asked the question I wanted to ask about how do we now determine physical determination of a lube oil.
Okay,
I've not finished.
Okay.
Because I had an experience whereby from a distributor, about 15 drums was supplied to me. And when I opened the drums, some of them were filled up. Why some? Half. And I questioned it. Why? At the end of the day, I said, okay, don't worry. I will get you some to refill it back. I started wondering. Yes, I started wondering. Is the viscosity going to be the same? So at the end of the day, we talked about it and I met my manager and then I said, okay, I should just accept it for the urgency of the low boy. Okay. The second one is, I don't know. I have gained a lot from this presentation. I don't know if you have, if you are going to give us a manual. That's my second question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for calling my attention back to doctor's question. When we have 15W40, where I'm citing my example from, you need to know what your manufacturer asks you to do because every oil has their API classification. By API classification talks about the quality of the oil. Okay? So if you have 15W40, for instance, you can see a CF4 oil is a performance level. You can see a CH4 oil is a performance level, but all of them have the same viscosity. As they're moving from CF down to CI, that is how their viscosity index is altered. That's how the ability to withstand heat. That's how the ability to perform in the downsized engines, their flowability. That's how their flowability is enhanced. So as you move from whatever grade you were down to the latest performing industrial engine oils, this is how their performance improves. And that's how they offer better protections for your engine. I want to understand the ease of doing business in this country is a very tough one. the question you just asked is not completely new to us. Between last year and early this year, we have incidences where so many things happened with our product in transit. Okay. If I have not met you before, but what you are saying now, I can say this is peculiar with Heritage Energy. I don't know. I said I've not met him before, but that's the only place we have this complaint big time. Yes. They got their finger burned before we came on board. We understand what happened, and that we have already taken measures to close it. It can never happen again. We had incidences where people transporting our product placed some fast one on the road. We need to say it. We're not ashamed of it because that was outside our control. Okay, they played the fast one on the product, and we got to know. The good thing that the quality of the product was still intact. Okay, so it's not something very new.
Okay, one more question here. Sorry.
Hold on 1 minute.
Let me address it because it keeps coming up. This idea of sharing presentation materials. I'm happy my MD is here. So if we get approval to share, we'll share. But in ExxonMobil, they see such presentation materials as proprietary documents, not to be shared. Jonathan knows. So, but you've asked the question and he's listening to you. So I'm going to take it up with him. If gives approval to share, why not? We share it with you. But if the approval is not given, that.
But you know the policy, so no, there's no putting me on the spot. You know the policy of the company. So what you are allowed to share, you share. What you know you are not allowed to share, you don't share.
The message is passed.
Okay, I have a question regarding the oil itself. We know that most of this oil that comes to us comes through supply chain. Now, when they purchase this oil, we don't have access to get those oil and start monitoring the storage and follow up. So what we just know is only when the oil comes down to the shop floor. Now, if this oil comes in, the doctor has asked for physical inspection. Now, aside from physical inspection, you mentioned the API. You also mentioned that if you leave it under the sun, some of the additives will go off. Now, how do we know? Aside coming to the lab to do oil analysis, you know, for AGO, for diesel, we have hydrometer you can use in checking and all that. What other smaller and devices we can use on the spot to ascertain, oh, this oil is not fit? Not when we bring it in and then, you know Nigerian policy, or Nigerian companies. Once it has been delivered to you, it has been delivered to you. Going back to tell your superior and say, this oil, okay, what I'm saying, they'll ask you who told you. So what can we fall back to? Because at the end of the day, the machine fails, it falls back to us on the shop floor, and then it also goes round and round, and then we start going through cycles of inspections and all. Thank you.
Incidentally, I have traveled to a number of plants in this country. I've seen situations where people invest millions of USD to build plants, acquire assets, but there's no provision for oil storage. Hello? Your plants, are they designed to store oil? You have oil storage design? So the question you're asking, I will not be able to answer it effectively until we start talking to you and talking to your management. I'm coming, sir. I know your facility very well. So the point here, I've visited a number of plants. You see a multi-million-dollar facility churning out products. But when you ask, where is your lubricant storage location? They will go and show you under one mango tree. It's not funny. It's not funny. The word mango tree is on the high side, but you will be so disappointed that there's no provision for reliability in terms of lubrication. So how do you expect that equipment or that plant to run with a good lubricant? So if you're a facility that is holding 1 month inventory, it means that you're going to receive that 1 month inventory and expose them to the adverse weather condition. Whether you are putting a small shade over them or not, you are exposing them to a hostile environment. So we need to go back. When we do plant audit or plant study, as we call them, we look at the lube room design. We begin to make suggestions on how you better store your lubricants. And in doing this, you get a lot of kickbacks from procurement, from everybody, because you're trying to ask them to invest more money. Whereas from the design of the plant, it should have been part of the design of the plant. So we need to begin to look at how do we store our lubricant there. For those of us who are working on board, if you're working on board, whether you are working on a support vessel, you are working on a security vessel, what is your provision for storing lubricant? For those of us who are working on vessels and you get off the waters so many nautical miles from the ground, you know you're going to be exposed to a lot of windy situation. That water with a lot of turbulence water splashing all over your vessel, all over you and everybody. And if you don't, that some of them are very corrosive and in nature, and they keep touching this drum. I've seen a security vessel that I've betted for crew change and the rest of them. I got into the vessel. I saw some heap of oil on top of some heap of salt on the drums. Where did the salt come from? The environment where they are working. So the question is, if there's any drop of water on that drum, that salt will find its way into the oil. So the question is, you that is working on vessel, how are you protecting the lubricant you receive for the purpose of maintenance while you're on the job before you come for the next port call?
Finally, please, what is the question?
The question is, are there tools, devices you can recommend that they can use to check oil on the spot?
Yes. We have field. There's no 30 people here. Okay, we have field test kits for on-the-spot analysis of lubricants in the plant. But I'm not saying we give them. You can procure them. There are different versions in the market. And you know the most important property of a lubricant, the most important single property of a lubricant is viscosity. And that's why viscosity drives selection of lubricant for any equipment. So those field test kits actually gives you an idea of the viscosity of the oil on the spot. Then there are other things you can check on the spot. Beyond those parameters you can check on the spot, then the recommendation would be to take the sample to the lab. So in conclusion, remember the topic is about good lubrication management. And like I predicted in the morning, I said this class has not been asking questions, but I'm happy you didn't start with this topic. You started with Doc, because Doc presented an academic research for us, and only that you see owing me the explanation why God empowered Adam to do maintenance. I have not shared it. So please, you know, the mobile lubricant is expensive in the market. We know. If I ask, and I'm happy nobody brought up the issue of price. We're expensive. We have what we call quality reserve. And if remember, I don't know if some of you have come across some research on running an equipment. I came across a research. What costs money in maintaining the equipment? In that report I saw, 3% comes from lubrication. And why is it that this 3%, when you have 500 billion worth of equipment, you are still interested in dropping the price of that 3%? Meanwhile, another parameter required in maintaining that equipment, like fuel, for example, takes 40%. Have you ever gone to a filling station to negotiate the price per liter of fuel? Why do you now argue with the price of lubricant? More so when you have a quality lubricant that has been projected as having quality reserve, in other words, exceeds beyond the limits set by original equipment manufacturers. We work with original equipment manufacturers all over the world. And I can tell you the preferred recommendation is always mobile. And if it's not mobile, it is not mobile. On that note, I want to thank you for your attention. Jonathan, take over.
Okay. Field test kit. Okay. Okay. I think maybe if you can get a picture, that would be great. Okay. So a few announcements before we go. But first of all, a round of applause for Steve, please. And then a bigger round of applause for our MD that has stayed with us all day long. And yes, just in case you're asking why Mobile has been a supporter of this program for over 3 years. We're already in its 4th year supporting us. So they are part of the reason why you are able to sit comfortable. MD say, if not, you'll be under the mango tree. Yeah, so a few announcements. I've already mentioned some. I know some of you here are interested in getting the certificate. Some of you that are registered online, yours would be ready. If you did not register online and you've not received any information to that regard, please go to the desk outside and you'll be told what to do to get your certificate of attendance. For those that registered online, be rest assured tomorrow you'll pick your certificates up. If you're interested in the certifications, get to them outside. They'll have you sorted out. If you're interested in the reliability bootcamp, get to them outside. They'll have you sorted out. And finally, tomorrow, please, 9 a.m. Can we say 9 a.m. together? So if I say 1, 2, 3. So you told me you'll be here by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, I'll tell them to put it up for them. Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow by 9 a.m. A round of applause for yourself, please. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.